One of the most challenging parts about going through and doing interviews is getting really good at conducting them. They can be super challenging to go through and do. Some of you probably already have experience doing this or running focus groups, and that's amazing. I encourage you to share any tips you might have or advice in the discussion board or comments below. That's super helpful to other people. Here are some that I found really helpful going through and doing different interviews that I've conducted. First big tip is going through and avoiding questions that people are just going to answer by saying yes or no. How do you do that? Well, by using how or why as stems in your questions, right? These naturally sort of lead people to want to describe more and give more information in their answers. Second tip is to avoid leading questions. Well, what is a leading question? It's a question where you naturally put in what you believe the answer should be into the question. So, for example, if you were to ask, can you tell me why Starbucks is so great? That's a leading question. Instead, you'd want to go through and ask it, for example, saying, tell me how you feel about Starbucks. That's a question that allows people to go either positive or negative in their response. Another big tip is to go through and use questions that are very broad. Tell me about, describe, walk me through your thinking. These types of phrases are going to be really good because they open people up and encourage them to describe and give more detail. When you start getting responses from people, they might not be the full amount of information. People might be reluctant to give you all of their details because they might not think you care. You can avoid that, or you can get over that by going through and asking probing questions. These could be ones such as, tell me more about, can you describe in more detail, why did you do something, what motivated you to do something. These types of phrases are going to help open up, hopefully, people's thinking and help them hopefully give you more details and more information than they might otherwise. A really simple question that opens people up is simply asking, why? Another tip, which seems kind of odd but can work wonders, is pretending to be a little bit stupid. Playing dumb can be super helpful because it allows people to actually fill in and provide details as to what they're thinking and why, right? Often we as interviewers will assume that other people think the same way that we do. Having people actually describe stuff and walk you through thinking that might seem obvious is actually useful because in many cases it might actually be different than what we would do. It's also really important to have participants go through and describe in their own words why something's important to them or the thought process they went through when choosing something. When you are going and doing your interviews, you might have participants tell you stuff that you know is actually incorrect or things that you simply just don't like hearing. You want to be non-judging. The focus of the interviews is not for you to share your expertise, it's instead for you to learn from the people you're talking to. Even if they're saying stuff you don't like or that you know is incorrect, you still want to be non-judging, using language like, oh wow, or uh-huh, or that's interesting. Those are really good phrases that I use when interviewing that don't say you like something or agree with it, they simply just move the conversation along. The whole focus is getting them to open up and share their experiences. Another tip, which is really powerful, is to use the power of silence. It seems kind of odd, but simply sitting there and being quiet can have participants want to talk more, right? Naturally, we do this as humans. It's kind of awkward to sit in a classroom or sit in a meeting and say nothing. So, I encourage you, bring a notebook, bring a pencil or pen, and be writing in that as you're going through and doing the interview. This allows you to slow down the conversation, adding in more silence and giving space for your participant to open up and share more of their thoughts and feelings. A final tip, which I'm guessing many of you already know, is to ask any sort of confidential questions or ones that are sensitive like income or age at the very end of your survey or at the very end of your interview. This is important for a couple different reasons. One, hopefully you've built up a level of trust and rapport with the person you're talking to throughout the interview, so they'll feel more comfortable sharing that information with you. The second thing is, even if they become upset or choose not to tell that information to you, which they can do, it's not going to, change or sort of sully the entire interview. If it happens at the very end, you've already spoken with them and got feedback and information from them before they might have become upset about that particular question.